What's going on, guys? It is a Tuesday night. Welcome to New 6 Weather Live at 9:30. We're here every Monday through Friday at 9:30. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to come hang out with me tonight. We are taking a live look tonight at Port Canaveral in the top box there. We're talking about the Florida forecast first. And then we're going to get into Trivia Tuesday. Every Tuesday on the show, if you're not familiar, outside of hurricane season, of course, we have a little trivia segments. That's coming up a little bit later, but we're going to highlight the forecast first. Tonight, certainly cool, not as cold, though, when you wake up tomorrow morning. We're going to highlight that and a gigantic warm-up coming by the end of this work week into the weekend, and I think staying through Christmas. We'll continue to highlight that longer range forecast. And then before we get to our first break, we are going to do our trivia question. Of course, you'll have the entire break to figure out the question. The one thing to figure out the answer, the one thing that I ask is that you please do not Google it or AI it, because it takes the fun out of everything. So I'd like you to post in the comments where you are tuning in from, and we're going to get into that through the course of. I'll try to do my best to look at the comments and answer any questions that pop up through the course of the show. And of course, if there's time at the end, I will definitely get into that. Low temperatures today, certainly cold. We talked about this yesterday on the show and throughout the newscast yesterday. Back to the 20s in Tallahassee. We slipped into the 40s in Orlando, right around the freezing mark in Pensacola and Jacksonville. Nice and toasty still, all things considered, from Key West to Miami, back up into West Palm, where they woke up into the mid to upper 60s. Right now, we have some clouds out there. It's certainly still cool across the Florida Panhandle. I mean, again, we're talking 40s in St. Augustine to Jacksonville to Tallahassee to Pensacola. We're in the low 60s in Orlando. It is nice in the low 70s from Key West to West Palm. So things are doing pretty good and have kind of leveled out from the chill, the small chill that we've gotten ourselves back into over the course of the last, 48 hours, give or take. Again, 62 degrees in Orlando. So we've kind of started to turn the tide a little bit when it comes to the chill. And again, big warm up coming on the pipeline as we get into tomorrow. Now, you might see over the next couple of days a few clouds or a couple of showers try to develop. Certainly, you're going to see some clouds. What I meant to say is a few showers or some drizzle might try to develop in the clouds. Certainly, there was some out there today. We talked about that yesterday, and I think we'll see the same kind of deal tomorrow and maybe even to a more widespread extent on Thursday as our wind remains off of the Atlantic. So you see this chunk of high pressure out here just kind of chilling. It's on its way, taking a trip towards Bermuda. There is Bermuda way out there. As it's doing that, it's putting our wind direction out of the east and off of the Atlantic. So that wind, that breeze, is bringing in some of the moisture off of the Atlantic Ocean. It's helping to generate clouds. And every now and then we might get a couple of areas of drizzle or a stray shower in the mix. It's quick hitting. The one thing I do think, though, we are going to see a few more clouds coming back into play tomorrow. And you can already kind of see that developing here. That very light gray film on your screen, if you can look really closely, that is where we have some of those clouds trying to filter in, those low-level clouds, right, coming in from the south and east. And I think those increase again during the day tomorrow, very similar to what it did today. So kind of a repeat performance there. Again, tomorrow when we're waking up, it's not going to be as bad. We're talking 50s, maybe slipping into the upper 40s northwest of I-4. This is basically right where we're supposed to be for this time of the year. Mid 50s in Orlando is 54. It's in the 40s the further northwest of I-4 you get. So again, depending upon where you're at, this is pretty typical for this time of the year in the state of Florida tomorrow morning. Then it's going to be pretty atypical once we get towards the end of the work week. Same deal with the morning lows. I think high temperatures are basically the same. This is going to be Wednesday, December 17th, tomorrow. We're at 76 in Orlando. The average is 74. So we're just a notch or two above where we should be. All things considered, though, it's pretty average. We're pushing 80 already in Naples. Same for Miami, Pensacola. We're in the mid 60s. So almost everybody is at least average or above average by a notch or two getting into Wednesday. And then I think everybody really starts to surge above average as we get into Thursday and Friday. So this is 7 o'clock on Wednesday morning, and we do have some clouds coming through. You see the green specks every now and then, And then there's Thursday. Some of that kind of whips back around out of the Gulf. And that's when we have a 20% shot for a couple of downpours on Thursday. I still think most of us are dry. The real deal is that we'll have an opportunity for a few stray downpours in the mix, or a few straight showers or areas of drizzle over the next couple of days, and especially closer to the coast, maybe as far inland as I-4. Otherwise, I think we're looking pretty good. Check this out. Mentioned that the warm-up is really, really in a full swing as we get ready to close out the work week. Here we go on December 18th. We're pushing 70 in Pensacola, Tallahassee. We're in the mid-70s in Jacksonville, right around 80 in Orlando, and then we are in the lower 80s from Tampa to Vero Beach to Naples to Miami into the Keys. So some big-time warmth then starts to build as we move into Thursday, Friday, and again, I think that stays with us all the way through Christmas, maybe even through the 26th of December before we start talking about the next opportunity for some chill. All right, just about to get the first break, but it is Trivia Tuesday. If you're not familiar, the second half of the show, among other things, we add a trivia question. Everyone likes trivia, right? I'd like you to post in the comments what you think the answer is, and then we will answer that and explain it on the other side of the break. So why does Florida often remain warmer? And it's relative, obviously. It was just pretty chilly in Florida, even during those big, bad cold outbreaks that send like Minnesota 30 to 40 degrees below zero. Is it A, the Appalachian Mountains block some of the cold air trying to come in from the northwest? Is it the flat terrain of Florida, making it a little easier to heat up in the sunshine? Is it C, those winter thunderstorms that we get? Or is it D, the ocean water from the Gulf and the Atlantic? So post in the comments what you think the answer is, and we will give the answer when we come back from this 3-minute break. I'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Alrighty, guys, welcome back to New 6 Weather live at 9:30. It is Trivia Tuesday, so we're getting right back into the question. A lot of people answering. Thank you so much for participating in D. Seems to be an overwhelming favorite. Ginger Gadsden, shout out. She's tuning in tonight. Awesome show at 9. Hope everybody has tuned in to New 6 at 9. She said she got nervous and blurted out A. It's not a bad answer. A is not a bad answer, and I'll show you why in just 1 second. But the answer is going to be D. The warm ocean water in the Gulf and the Atlantic. We're, of course, a peninsula. We are surrounded by water on 3 sides. And a couple of things when it comes to the water. Obviously, the water is pretty chilly right now. But all things considered, what is cold to us is warm to the air. Water heats up slower than the air around it. That is why the peak of hurricane season, I even hate to bring up that word hurricane in December, but that's why the peak of hurricane season is in September, because the warmest part of the water is in September. Meanwhile, the hottest portion of the air is in July and August across the country in the summer months. So the water takes a little bit longer to reach peak heating. Same deal, it takes a lot longer to then cool that water. So what happens in this case is that as these air masses work their way from Canada across the country, they're already starting to modify a little bit. If there's a deep snowpack in the plains, it helps to keep that air mass a little more insulated, but it's still going to modify as it works its way south. And as mentioned, the water cools down and warms up a lot slower than what the land does. So I have this blank canvas here, and I'm hoping my telestration works on this map so that we can really do some diagram. Whoops, I went too far ahead. I don't know that my telestration is going to work here. Let's see. I guess sometimes you have to give it a second because it's a little finicky. It's really not going to work. The map moves. There it is. There it is. See, sometimes you have to let it go. Okay. So a lot of times we have these cold fronts and they come in like that. And I should change my color here. I'm going to be like a little kid. Blue cold front. We're going to be meteorologically correct here in our drawing. So it's blue and it's a cold front coming through. A lot of the times, the air mass works its way in like this. Well, there's a decently warm chunk of water that air mass has to cross, and it modifies even further. If you remember, it was really, really cold. I think it was the first few days of November. We had the front and the wind oriented more like this. So our biggest cold snaps are when we have a straight up north wind, because that air mass is then being transported, whoops, sorry for making everybody dizzy, kind of straight out of here and then not crossing the water. So it's kind of rare that we do have that perfectly oriented wind direction where that air mass slides right on down the Florida Peninsula. But we had that in early November, and that's one of the reasons why it got so cold into the mid 30s. And we had near record cold, in some cases record cold, slide down the Florida Peninsula. That was partially responsible for that. Now, the other question, or the other answer that was thrown out a lot, was answer A, the mountains. Now, the mountains do have a role, not in blocking the air masses for us. So here are the Appalachian Mountains. They run, right about through here. The Appalachian Trail comes in something like that, give or take. There is a phenomenon where the mountains do have a big influence in blocking the cold, and it's known as cold air damming. I used to work in Virginia, Southwest Virginia, in the Roanoke area. And one of the biggest forecast challenges was something known as cold air damming. And what happens is it's a very shallow phenomenon where you get high pressure to build kind of right over here, give or take, somewhere in this general area. And with the mountains here, it sends kind of cold air with the clockwise airflow, just like this. It's a shallow air mass, so that one really can't get over the mountains on the western side. So it could be like 70 over here in Kentucky and Tennessee, and then it could legitimately be in the 40s on this side of the mountains if there is something like that, because that kind of air mass and that kind of weather setup is much more shallow than some of these big blasts of colder air, so that are coming in from the northwest and things like that. So it wasn't a completely far-fetched answer to choose A at all. So Just some food for thought there. Yes, this Christmas looks to be way, way warmer. I think it was Kimberly. Somebody asked about, has Florida ever seen a white Christmas? Hold on, I gotta go back in my comments. I gotta see who this was. Yes, it was Kimberly. She's asking, if has there ever been a historic white Christmas in Florida? To my knowledge, the only time that there has been snow on the ground on Christmas morning. By the way, there is an official definition of a white Christmas, and it happens to be 1 inch of snow on the ground or falling on Christmas morning. So there's two ways you can get it. You can either get an inch of fresh snow on Christmas morning, or already have an inch on the ground when you wake up Christmas morning. So either one of those two. Um, to my knowledge, it's only happened once, 1989. 1989, right? Now I'm like Taylor Swift. Hold on. I think it was 1989. There was a snowstorm in North Florida that brought some snow. There were flurries in the Orlando area and some sleet pellets in the Orlando area. It really didn't stick, but it did stick across North Florida, and it did stick around to Christmas morning. So, to my knowledge, there's only been a white Christmas in the state of Florida once in 1989 with that super rare snow event. Okay, thank you, Kimberly. Yeah, 1980. It's like, I don't know why, because I always get it confused. I mess up my years because in 1899, that's when some of the coldest air that Florida has ever felt. I believe that record still stands. 1899, 2 degrees below zero in Tallahassee. Um, that is where that's when we set the all-time record low temperature in Tallahassee, 2 degrees below zero. That was in 1899. So 1989, 1899. There's a lot of nines and a lot of eights in there. And a lot of times I always jumble up all the numbers. So yeah, thanks guys. 1989, the only time, to my knowledge, at least in recorded history, but they would have written about it in books and things like that, because again, we have the stuff from 1899, the pictures of when it snowed in the Florida Panhandle, and all that cold. All right, I have to get the second break in. If you have any questions, post those in the comments, and I will see you guys in just about 3 minutes to wrap this thing up on a Tuesday. Alrighty, guys, welcome back to News 6 Weather Live at 9:30. Just a couple of extra minutes, and of course, I always like to check up on this forecast. We made this last Monday, so 8 days ago. We talked about the blowtorch was likely coming for Christmas. It continues to get more red. Again, I like to look into the long range. Obviously, not a slam dunk. You can't make a point forecast where it's going to be like, oh, it's going to be 65 and rainy on this day or anything like that. But you can get the trends. They're not always right, of course. You take it with a grain of salt. But we like to play that game here and go way out into the future. And for Christmas, we thought that we would have a shot in the mid to upper 70s in Central Florida. So we did make that call last Monday, a full 2.5 weeks ahead of Christmas. And it continues to look like that is going to be the case. I think we have a really, really good shot at, let me move the date back to the 25th. I mean, there it is, mid to upper 70s across a lot of Central Florida. And again, that warmth is going to build across the nation's heartland. I mean, record highs. If anybody's traveling, across the country, I think the weather is going to be relatively quiet. Certainly, snow is going to be few and far between. If you are looking for the white Christmas, think up. You need either elevation or some places that have gotten blasted with some of the lake effect snow of late, off of Lake Ontario, off of Lake Erie, off of Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, the Great Lakes. That is where some snow might be able to hang on, but holy cow, it is going to be hard to get a white Christmas. I mean, what we're looking at here, these are not the actual air temperatures. These are the temperature anomalies. So where it says 22 degrees and 29 degrees, that is above normal. When you're starting to talk about records, you're in that 30-degree-ish zone. So, I mean, we're talking Christmas Eve, record high temperatures from back, and look, and even intensifies and expands. Look at that towards Nebraska. I mean, 33 degrees warmer than average is pretty insane. And any kind of snow that's out there, it is going to be eaten up to the max. So just some wild stuff. We're going to take a look more at some white Christmas stuff later on in the week about some of the probabilities and things like that. That's going to be a show for another time as we move forward this week, as we are running out of time today. Malikaliki Maka, love that. Yeah, they certainly see green Christmases all the time, unless you're up on like Mauna Loa or Mauna Kea or something. They get snow in a decent clip in the higher elevations there in the volcanoes. But for the lower elevations, it's going to be around 80 and sunny pretty much all the time. Great spot out there in Hawaii for sure. Yeah, 3 years ago it was cold. I think it was like the third coldest Christmas on record, at least for Orlando, second or third. That was a big, big cold front. I was working that night, Christmas Eve. That was a gigantic front that came through to bring us like from the 70s to the 40s, and we had some thunderstorms with it. So I think it's going to be much less of any kind of fanfare either on Christmas. Again, it should be fairly quiet, and it should be pretty warm across Central Florida and across a lot of the country. I mean, 70s maybe in St. Louis. That's nuts. That's nuts. Alrighty, guys. You know the drill. If you're watching on News 6 Plus, News 6 at 10 starts in just a couple of minutes. We're back here tomorrow night, News 6 at 9:30. It's Wednesday, so we're talking Weather Headline Wednesday. There's probably going to be a little bit of flavor of this going forward, because this is going to be the main weather headline. In my opinion, it is going to be so, so warm across the board. We're going to take that and run with that for your Wednesday. I will see you in a couple of minutes on News 6 at 10, and then right back, News 6 at 11 on the traditional cable side of things, or streaming, whatever you do, we'll be there at 11 o'clock, News 6. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, taking time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great night. Thanks for playing Trivia Tuesday. We'll be back here again next Tuesday with our next trivia question. Good night, Kimberly. Good night, Melissa. Have a great evening. I'll see you tomorrow night.